So I remember when I first started out in sales, in high ticket sales. I had my first offer back in 2023 where I got landed on that. And it wasn't a proper offer. It was kind of like a pyramid scheme offer. So I started back in 2023 this summer and I paid myself into this offer. So basically what the offer was is they sold me on like a job placement offer. So they told me like if you buy into this, we're going to teach you sales, we're going to place you on our offer, you're going to get leads, and then that's what you're going to sell, right? You're going to get these leads, you're going to reach out to them, you're going to close them, blah blah blah. The problem with this offer was what they sold to me is what I was going to sell to other people. So it was just like a pyramid scheme. It wasn't a proper sales gig. But the first proper, like real sales gig that I had came last year. And I got this offer through several months of back and forth with this person. So it was a big fitness influencer by the name of SkySense on IG. So I reached out to him. It was a lot of back and forth. He didn't have his high ticket offer in place yet, so he wasn't ready to take in anyone. And I just kept responding to him. I kept following up with him. Then eventually, out of nowhere, I was in Thailand in Koh Samui, all alone, broke, wasn't making any money. I was just trying to figure out my path. He reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, bro, are you still in closing? Because I need someone right now. I'm starting to build my offer and I need help." I was like, "Yeah, man, like absolutely. Like we can get on a call, we can talk about it." He was like, "Yeah, I have this person that's interested. I've only spoken to her over DMs, but she's very interested. I can book a call, for the both of you so you can hop on and you can talk to her and you can close her. And if you manage to close her, we can speak and we can set up an agreement." So I said yes, absolutely. Like that was what I wanted. This was my path to freedom, like being able to work online and do whatever the fuck I wanted. At that point, I had already quit my job. I was already traveling. I was already kind of doing whatever I wanted, but I was living off of savings. I still had a lot of savings by that point. So I was going to be fine for at least like another year, but I still wanted to make money. Of course, I don't want to fucking be jobless and no money coming in every month, right? It gave me a lot of stress not having that. So this was a great moment. I was very, very happy about this. And I told myself, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to do my best. If I fail, I fail, but I'm at least going to make sure that I do my very fucking best. So I remember before that call, I was so nervous. Holy shit, I was so nervous. Like I was shitting myself. Like I just took a walk around the block and yeah, I was really, really feeling the nerves of getting on this call. Thankfully, it was an easy call. It was a walk-in. She paid on the call. There was no resistance, there was no objections. The only issue we had was tech issues, connection, mic issues. So we had to take the call on WhatsApp, so I couldn't record it and I couldn't show him. But we closed her. I closed her nonetheless. So thankfully, it was an easy call because I wasn't an experienced closer. I hadn't really learned proper closing and proper sales. Um, so yeah, that led to me continuing to work with him. I started taking all his calls and I started closing for him. And we did that for about 2, 3 months. And then I found a new offer, uh, a very solid, a proper high ticket offer, with a bunch of students, with a bunch of social proof and a lot of like a good track record, right? And I reached out to them and I got on an interview. I sent over some call recordings and they immediately liked me and they took me onto that offer. The first month I just made, 1.2K because I started taking calls from like the 20th June last year. So I didn't really have time to kind of ramp up and get into it properly. But the month after that, I made 7K in commissions. This was the most money I'd ever made in my life in a single month. Ever. It was amazing, right? And I did that on my second month. Then my third month, I almost doubled that. I made 13K in August 2024. That was amazing. That was like, what the fuck? I made 13K. I was like, yeah, I just I didn't get it. I couldn't really grasp how that was possible, but I did. And it was an amazing feeling. However, the month after that, I made 5K in September. And then in October, I made 2K. And this is the point where sales really fucked with my brain. It really fucked with my head. I was like, wait, what's going on? How did I go from 7K to 13K to then 5K and now in October last year, 2K? And I realized something about sales that I didn't really understand before. I had done sales before, even before high ticket sales, I had done door to door and all that. But one thing I really realized at this point in time when it came to sales was how mental it is. It really fucks with your brain and with your head on another level. It plays with you and makes you think you're the shit one month and then you're absolutely worthless the next month. For instance, I'm on an offer right now. I'm not making nearly as much money from sales on this offer compared to the offer last year. But this offer, last month I made almost 5K, which isn't a lot, but it's still something. This month I'm projected to make, I think it's I think it's less than 1K, if I'm going to be honest. You know? And I understand the game. I understand, okay, it's December. Most people aren't locked in. They're celebrating Christmas. They're in their lazy period. But this time around, it doesn't affect me as negatively as it did last year. Because last year, when I got to that 2K month in October, I decided to quit. I literally quit that offer because it just got too difficult. I just couldn't take the mental strain of, going from such highs of making 13K in a month to then going, less than half the next month and then less than half of that the month after. So I got less than half of that 13K the next month, 5K out of 13K. And the month after that, I got 2K out of 5K. So less than half of my half of 13K. So it was rough. It was very rough and it just led to me quitting. I was like, fuck sales. I don't want to do sales anymore. I want to do my own thing. But quitting on that offer was a big mistake. I shouldn't have done it. I should have started a business on the side while staying on that offer. Because till this day, that was the best sales offer I've ever had. And I've had many different offers after that, especially this year. This year, I've been on 3 different offers. The first one was shit. The second one was a little bit better, not that good. We had a lot of refunds, so it wasn't that good. And this third offer is the best one that I've had this year. But the offer I was on, the trading coaching offer, it was a trading coaching offer that I had last year. That was the best offer I've ever had. Like literally the best offer I've ever had. And I regret quitting it. I feel stupid for doing so. If I kept being on that offer, I would have been a far better closer. I would have been making far more money. I would have been able to scale the business with the capital that I'd made from that business, from that closing offer. And I would have been much further along in my entrepreneurial journey. Right now, I'm running an AI agency. I'm building my personal brand and I'm doing sales. So I'm making around like 5-6K per month, but it's not enough. It's not enough at all. Like, I don't want to be making 5-6K per month. Like, that's nothing. Even when I was making 13K that month, I knew it was good money, but I still wasn't satisfied. I wanted to make more. I knew how much money there was out there and how much money people were making, but I wanted to make more. Like, so right now when I'm making 5-6K per month with like all my endeavors, I don't feel like it's enough. So yeah, lesson in that, I should have just stuck through it and I should have just, bit through the bullet. But it got too difficult and I was a bitch and I quit. And that's something that I learned this year, to always be consistent with your path and don't quit when it gets hard. Like right now, I'd rather get fired from an offer than quit. Back then, I had such a big ego and fragile ego that I was like, I don't want to get fired. I'll quit before I get fired because my ego was just that fragile. Right now, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do my best until the end. If you want to fire me for my poor performance, then go ahead and fire me. At least I gave it my all, right? So that's the kind of lesson that I wanted to share with you guys when it comes to sales. It's that it's going to make you feel like you're bipolar. Like at one point you're gonna feel like on top of the world, and then the next month you're gonna feel like shit. And even like, from day to day it was like that. There were some days that I had closed, the day before. So I had closed maybe one or two deals and collected like, 10 to 15K cash. So the next day, before taking my calls, because I always took my calls on the evenings, the next day I felt amazing. I was on top of the world. I was so happy. Like I was so proud. I was in such a good mood. I was so motivated. Then that same day when I was taking my calls and I didn't close anyone and I got rejected over and over and over again, the next day I was super low. I was super low. I didn't feel like socializing. I didn't feel like talking to anyone. I had no energy. I had no drive. And my sister noticed this. She was like, some days you're super excited, you're super on it. It's usually those days where you close a deal, where you had closed deals before, the day before. And then all of a sudden, the next day when you hadn't closed the deal before that, you're like super low. She was like, what's up with that? I was like, I don't know. I let the result affect me too much. And that's something that I noticed with myself. Like some days I was like so high on cloud nine, other days I was feeling like shit. I didn't even want to talk. I was so depressed. I was so down. And I realized that the game of sales makes you bipolar. From month to month, from day to day, week to week, it's a very, very tough journey. But nonetheless, high ticket sales is what gave me the freedom that I have today. It's what allowed me to live the life that I'm living, be able to travel whenever I want, go to my girlfriend in the Philippines, come back to my family in Sweden, and just live a life of freedom. Have my own routines, not have to wake up to an alarm. And despite how hard it's still been so fucking worth it. So for anyone watching this that's kind of stuck in life, you're working a 9 to 5 or you're studying or you're not very happy with your current situation, my best recommendation to you is to get into high ticket sales. And I'm going to create a completely separate video on this in the future on how you can actually get into high ticket sales with proper instructions, with a proper, roadmap on how to do it. Because it's very easy for me to sit here and say, oh, get into high ticket sales, but how do you do that? Well, I'm going to release a full guide in the short term future if I find that people will need it or there's demand for it. But I think I'm gonna release it regardless. I think it's an important topic, and yeah, it's the one thing that freed me from living a miserable life and having a 9 to 5 and just hating myself every day, to now living life on my terms and doing whatever I want. I'm still not 100% happy with where I am, of course. I still have so much more to achieve, but life is still 100 times better than it was 2 years ago. So yeah, that's kind of my story with sales and how it affected me in the beginning. And right now, I'm just barely. I barely care when I have a bad month or a bad week. It is what it is. That's just how sales is. It's up and down. But yeah, appreciate you guys listening to me rant as always. I know I talk a lot, but I appreciate you just hear me out and tuning in for these videos. I'm trying to stay consistent with this. Like, I find YouTube and content creation so fucking fun. Just talking about my life and talking about my experiences and, you know, sharing lessons kind of with my old self, like I'm speaking to my young self and trying to help him. I think that is so valuable. So thank you guys for tuning in. I love making these videos. Even if I don't get any views, I love making these videos. I think it's so fucking fun. I think building my personal brand is the most important thing out of everything that I'm doing. with sales, with my AI agency, with everything. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in. And as always, I'll see you next time. Cheers.